Hold on. Hold on.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Echo,
you need to be...
echo.
That's what I was trying to stop the video, not on mute. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, hold on.
Recording in progress.
Got it, okay.
Are we good? Okay. All right, good evening, everybody. This is the Select Board meeting for Monday, July 18th, 2022. With me, I have Ellen Rosenfeld, our clerk, Craig Schultz, our vice chair, Karen Bray DeMarzo, our assistant town administrator and HR director, and Mike Kaczynski, who is our town administrator, and I am Erin Underhill, the chair. We have quite a full agenda tonight, so we'll keep this moving as well as we can. First, we're going to start with some announcements. It looks like we have one from Mr. McKay.
Good evening. Thank you, Madam Chair. This is just an update on the paving in the town of Millis. We started last Wednesday. We paved the DPW parking lot. I think that anybody going to the transfer station would have seen that. Nice job. That's under the Permanent Building Committee, and hopefully I can report that it was definitely under budget, came in under budget. So that's a good thing. Starting, I believe, the first week in August, but I will be definite, and we'll send something out on Facebook and all that. The paving of Main Street from Hammond Lane to just about after Tractor Supply, a little further than that. That will be milled. We're trying to talk them into doing it at night. We'll see what happens there. So that's Hammond Lane to after Tractor Supply. At the same time, I'm sure they'll mill everything at the same time. We're going to be milling Pleasant Street from Main Street to Village Street, and that whole intersection from where we ended up the paving right about Blueberry Lane to the intersection of Pleasant Street, and we'll cut the saw joint right at Village Street there. That's also going to be done. And lastly, we'll be doing Exchange Street on both sides of where Toll Brothers did not pave, and I think this has been reported. So this is a pretty ambitious paving project that we've undertaken this year. We will be back to do, you saw the crack sealing, that's already been done. We did Exchange Street from Island Road all the way to the center of town, and everything that's been paved in the past 2 years on Main Street from the police station down to the Roach Brothers Plaza. That's been all crack sealed and preventive maintenance. So we are getting going on it, and it will be pretty busy. We have signs that we'll get. We should have our signboard hopefully and we'll use the police signboard to announce so people will know. We have, I think if anybody's watching and they understand, gas hookups, water hookups, sewer hookups, we have had a lot of people interested in that. Some on Pleasant Street. We've got like maybe 2 or 3 gas hookups done before the paving. Sewer connections, there's a couple on Pleasant Street, and that's going to be done before the paving on Pleasant Street. So
Good.
It's good. Right?
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. I won't go far, because I think I'm missing it.
Ellen and Craig, do either of you have any announcements?
No announcements.
Nope. All righty.
Erin, I just wanted to say too that we're actively looking for 2 recreation committee members.
Oh, okay.
Maybe I'll
All right.
leave.
Writing that down, see if I can find someone. All right, and before we move on to our scheduled items, I'm just going to quickly move up as mayor here for the Boosters Back to School Run. If you could come on up. Otherwise, you'd be here for a very long time.
Good evening, and thank you. I'm Allison Marr with the Millis Boosters, and coming up in September, we're looking to have I think will be our 5th 5K community fun run, fundraise for the Boosters, which supports Millis athletes, athletic programs, the athletic department, as much as we can. So this was our biggest fundraiser of last year, and it was a very successful event. We're looking forward to it. Doesn't seem to be any conflicts from any of the other town, groups that I've been in touch with, the school, rec department, police has been involved, DPW, so everyone seems to be on board and supportive of it. Sunday, September 25th.
Okay. Any questions?
Nope.
Nope.
Okay.
Good luck. Thank you.
Enjoy yourself, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
So
You're not going to be there?
So we need to approve this, right?
Yes.
I move that we approve the Millis Boosters Club Fun Run for Sunday, September 25th.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded to approve the fun run. Any questions or comments? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
Thank you. One other question.
Yes.
A few years ago, we had a banner over 109, and then it was ruined.
Okay.
And so I wasn't involved in getting that allowed. I don't know if that's something I request of you, or who has to approve that.
So, I was going to say, I can speak to that. Actually, Allison, they are no longer doing signs
Okay.
over 109 at the current time.
Okay.
However, I know Recreation Committee just put one up recently for, I think it's for the band concerts, and it's actually along the fence.
I
of the
did- I have
pickleball,
seen that.
So maybe that's a
Okay.
possible option.
Sounds great.
We don't have a bucket truck to put them up.
Oh, that's fair enough.
Which is why I guess they're not doing them at this point, so, but
Okay.
we certainly help, we can help with any of the advertising too, if you want to send us
Thank you.
anything
Thank
on
you.
Facebook and anywhere
Be in
else,
touch.
so.
We'll get it rolling now that we've got approval. Appreciate it.
No
Thank
problem.
you.
Thank you.
All right, so the first thing we have are some appointments and hearings. So for appointments, we have Mr. McKay for 2 DPW heavy equipment operator laborers.
Finally. It's been a long wait.
I know.
So the first appointment through the town administrator, his appointment would be to, I think you have the cover letter for Mr. Jesse Chamberlain of 766 King Street. Jesse saw, Karen had an idea of putting it on from one of her classes to post it on the signboard, and it was out there for 3 weeks, and he saw it and applied for it.
Wow.
Which is good. But the drawback with a lot of these people are applying for these jobs, they don't have the proper licenses, so we have to give them a little time to get them. So this appointment would be contingent. He's already done his query check, he's done his physical, and has all his paperwork, so I would ask that his appointment be for tomorrow, starting tomorrow morning. He would have been here tonight, but he has 2 jobs, and tonight's his last job, his last night at his second job. I told him not to resign until he gets appointed, but he's eager to start. And it would be contingent, so the physical and the query checks out of the way. Within 6 months, he'd have to obtain a CDLB license, and that's a mistake. It's air brake endorsement and his 2B hoisting license. So it's not
Air
tanker,
brake
it's air
instead of
brake.
tanker.
Yes. The town administrator met with him also
Okay,
before the appointment.
okay. And the T1 and D1 water licenses
Yes,
as well?
I'm sorry, yeah, that's correct.
Within a year?
Yeah,
Okay.
within a year, yes.
So, Madam Chair?
Yes.
I'd ask that the board vote this evening to ratify my appointment of Jesse Chamberlain as a heavy equipment laborer with the Millis DPW, with the contingencies that within 6 months, they obtain a CDLB driver's license with air brake endorsement and 2B hoisting licenses, and within 1 year, obtain a T1 and D1 water license.
Okay. Any questions?
None.
I'll make a motion to ratify the appointment of Jesse Chamberlain for a DPW laborer, contingent on the air brake endorsement and the T1, D1 water license.
Effective tomorrow.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I second.
All right. It's been moved and seconded to ratify the appointment of Jesse Chamberlain. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. The second, through the town administrator's appointment, would be to Michael Prescott of 9 Rosenfeld Ave, Milford, Mass. Michael will take over the transfer station duties Tuesday through Saturday. This appointment also, both of these are Tuesday through Saturday appointments, but that's not a big deal. And he already has his 2B hoisting license, so he would still has to get his physical. He did his query check and passed that. We're trying to get the query checks out of the way first before we get involved.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Makes sense.
Works out a little better. So that has been all checked out. So he still has to have his physical, and he will have to obtain his CDLB license with air brake endorsement within 6 months.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Kaczynski.
recommending the board vote to ratify my appointment of Michael Prescott as a heavy equipment laborer with the transfer station, contingent upon a successful physical, and that he obtain a CDLB driver's license with air brake endorsement within a period of 6 months.
I'll make a motion that we ratify the appointment of Michael Prescott as a heavy equipment labor position, contingent on a physical before the start of work and a CDL-B driver's license with air brake endorsement.
Second?
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to ratify the appointment of Michael Prescott. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Madam Chair, if I can report to the board, this is going to be a very tough thing for this industry. The state has instituted, now that, before when you used to get your CDL license, you would be able to go get the permit, and you would either hire a truck or you would use any type of truck, and then you'd be able to go and take the test. Well, starting on February 7th, you now have to take a class, and the class is very, very expensive. Yes, that's what I looked at too, and I told them to get going on it. And
I smell a rebate.
it could be it's right now, it's only the tractor-trailer school that does it in this area.
Wow.
And so we may have to come back and give these guys a little bit of leeway to get these, because the classes are all full. And this is straight across the industry. So, but they're going to do their best, and they know that they have to get them, and they're going to work on it.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you. Okay, next, we have the appointment of the temporary department assistant 1 for the executive office. Mr. Kaczynski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As the board's aware, at the annual town meeting, a new position in the Executive Office of Department Assistant 1 was approved for funding for 18 hours per week. We have been in the process of seeking an employee for that position for over the past 6 weeks. Up to this point, we have not been successful. We are continuing to advertise, and there may be some folks coming forward within the next several weeks, but we are looking to bring on a temporary person for this position, at least through Labor Day. So I'm asking that the board vote this evening to ratify the temporary appointment of Catherine Farrar to this position from now until September 2nd, and we'll reevaluate where we are with the recruitment process at that time for a permanent position.
Okay,
I'll make a motion to ratify the appointment of Catherine Farrar for the Department Assistant 1 position, effective immediately, terminating September 2nd.
Second?
okay, it's been moved and seconded to ratify the appointment of Catherine Farrar. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Great, thank you very much.
Okay, and then the next one is appointment of 2 zoning board of appeals members. And that is apparently me.
Yes. I'm just looking for a name.
Madam Chair, I think the first person on your list is Mr. Michael Giampietro, and I believe he is here in the audience. So if you have any questions for him, he is very knowledgeable in the world of zoning, and he has checked with town council to make sure that any possible conflict issues would be addressed. And I'm sure he'd be happy to answer any questions that you have for him this evening.
Sure. Do you guys have questions?
I have no questions.
And I have a question.
Not that we don't want to have you conversation, Mike,
I mean,
but we got no questions.
might as well ask him something.
talk?
What made you interested in the zoning board of appeals?
Well, you know, I moved here, so
Okay.
my job is zoning, so I
Okay.
have the
So you
house at
want
least
more?
one more night out of, so I
Okay.
can get out of the house. The Red Sox game will be over, so.
Yeah.
All right, I
Yeah.
see.
So I was involved in Milford in a lot of different boards and commissions, so gave up a lot of my time over there when I was a resident there, so now it's time to give up my time here. And I've been in zoning, dealing with zoning for the past 40 years. So, and I think Bob Fogerty is your next appointee, and he's our local inspector.
Okay.
And we both are involved in zoning. We know what's going on.
Yeah.
We know what's coming down the pike. We can advise the zoning board, of issues, so they're fully aware. And that's the biggest part of being on the board, is to know, what's going on with either it's the Conservation Commission or the zoning board or whatever board it is, of what's happening real time instead of trying to guess what's going on. So, I'll
Okay.
be more than happy to serve on the ZBA.
I'll make a appointment, I move that we appoint, sorry, your name again, Michael Giampetro to
Want me to spell it for you?
Yeah, I can almost make it out here on the application, on the, to the zoning board of appeals. I think that's it, yeah.
Second?
Yeah.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to appoint Michael Giampetro to the Zoning Board of Appeals. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes
Thank you.
unanimously. Okay, and the next one we have is Bob Fogerty.
Yes, next applicant for the zoning board of appeals is Bob Fogerty, 86 Forest Road, and I believe he is applying for similar reasons, and his knowledge of zoning is fairly extensive and growing as well.
I'll make a motion we appoint Bob Fogerty to the zoning board of appeals.
Second?
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to appoint Bob Fogerty to the Zoning Board of Appeals. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so that brings us to the presentation of the final enterprise fund study report and allocation policy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We've asked the consultant on this project for Community Paradigm, Carl Valente, to come back and give a final presentation on the report that's been completed. And Mr. Valente will be still giving some assistance to the DPW office and making sure that the tracking is going forward. But I'd like to thank Carl for coming in tonight for a wrap-up of the project.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Hi.
Madam Chair, members of the board, again, my name is Carl Valente. Since I was here before the board in April, I see you have a new board member, so Mrs. Rosenfeld, I haven't met you before, but it's nice to meet you.
Same.
And I'll be mindful of you trying to keep this meeting moving along. I think you're smart to do that on such a beautiful night out there. I'm going to do a very brief recap from where we were when I was here in April, and I think talk really about your next steps that we discussed. So when I was last here, we now have 2 years of data that we've done this analysis with your staff, fiscal 21 data and fiscal 22 data. And the second year data, last fiscal year 22, is how I describe as much more robust information. Your finance staff made a number of changes in the way they do the accounting and the tracking of spending in the enterprise funds, the 3 enterprise funds, which really made it much easier to do a more, again, precise analysis for you. The other part of that hard work is in our second year of the analysis, we found that the gap that appeared between what you were billing and collecting for your enterprise funds and what the costs were was cut almost in half. So in the first analysis we did for 21, we found your indirect costs were 25% less than you were actually billing for. So in a sense, you were overbilling when we looked at the first year. But again, the second year, we had much better data, more complete data, and the analysis showed it was down to only a 12% difference. I think as you do this each year, you'll have better data, and then our recommendation is that you use a 3-year rolling average just to even out any peaks and valleys that may occur as you do the analysis. The second part of our presentation from April is we looked at 3 different models for you for now closing this gap between what you're billing for and what the actual costs are showing. An aggressive implementation plan, which was a 3-year plan, a more moderate implementation plan over 5 years, and then what I characterize as a budget-sensitive plan, having been a town manager for many years and knowing the importance of how it takes sometimes to close budget gaps. That was a longer term plan of 7 years that we done. So we gave you 3 different models, and regardless of what model you choose, I think it's something that you can revise every year and decide if you can shorten the amount of time or if you need to lengthen it, depending on, a number of financial factors. On the next slide, just to give you a sense of the gap. So for each of the three enterprise sums, so for water, you're basically there. Our calculations of indirect costs and what you're budgeting for indirect costs are within $2,800 of one another. So again, I think you're basically there. And for your sewer enterprise fund, there's a larger gap.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Maybe a curl.
Thank you. Here, there's about a $38,000 gap that needs to be closed, not quite 16%. And then the largest gap to close, in terms of percentages, dollar-wise, not much difference, but in Stormwater Enterprise Fund, about a $40,000 gap that you need to close, or about 25% of that fund. So that's the dollar amount that we're looking at, and again, you have three models that we presented as for closing that gap. With that, I think I'll wrap up my presentation. Our final analysis was presented and sent to the town in this report that was sent to the town administrator last week. Unless I hear anything from the board in terms of if there was something that wasn't clear or the wording that wasn't correct, I'll send the analysis now, all the Excel spreadsheets, I'll send those electronically to the staff so that as they do the update in subsequent years, you can just build off the work that we've already done and the training I've been able to do with Deirdre on this, who is a very quick learner. I'm very impressed with how quickly she's picked up on this analysis. So after if I hear anything from the board, if not, I'll forward you those electronic spreadsheets that you then have those. And that's, I think, all I wanted to say in terms of prepared remarks tonight.
All right, thank you. Any questions?
I have just one. So the total gap outstanding, back one slide, I think, was $80,000, 81,000. Yeah,
That's right.
yeah. And so that's how much the gap that needs to be taken care of in a budget or cycle or two. So or more. I mean, you've taken the budget-sensitive view also in there, but I'd like to try to get it done in one or two more budget cycles, and I don't think that's unachievable. I'm just writing down the number, because I read the 44 pages, but I couldn't find this table, which is the one that I was really looking forward to.
Yeah, did we get that?
Yeah, it was separate cover.
Oh,
Because I got the large package with 44 pages, but I didn't see that one, so.
Yeah,
That's
that
the
was
number. Yeah.
part of the presentation from April.
Okay. Yeah, I remember it from back then, but there are a lot of different ways to compute the indirect costs, and, I mean, doing this for work every month, there's dozens of ways and dozens of right ways, and the important thing is picking one and use it consistently year after year after year, and then you can see how you're doing. So, okay, well, that gives us the information we need. Yeah.
So, I would also be interested in being as aggressive as is possible for this.
Yeah.
Ellen's nodding as well. So, Craig, so what do you think how do you think we should approach that then to be aggressive?
well, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So you give us the 3, 5, 7-year plan. I mean, you say it. Is there a plan in there? Or you just say, go have at it?
And I apologize, I didn't reprint the plan, but there was, that would show over each of the, say, the 3-year.
Yeah,
What dollar amount you need to
Yeah.
adjust each year in order to close the gap. And we lay out the assumption, so, we make an assumption that your costs are going to increase by, I think it was 2.5%, it may have been 3%. So given the costs are increasing by an amount anyway, what would you have to decrease the revenues, adjust your rates? to bring that gap down. So that is, and I can make those spreadsheets available again to
That
the
would-
staff, but it does list for each of the different options, what you'd have to do each year to close the gap.
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, ballpark, if you did 60,000 one year, 20-something the next year, it puts you at the 80. If you do 40 and 40-something, there's a number that gets it in 2 years pretty quickly. And if new growth, depending on where that comes in, as we look at the budget, it's just going to mean that the DPW operating budget is going to have to grow at a higher rate if we're comfortable with that. And that's what we have to decide on, because we're going to have to basically take the subsidies that have been going from this fund to the DPW budget and absorb all the true costs of DPW, if I'm understanding it correctly.
That's correct.
So the question is there a way to absorb an $80,000 increase in the budget? And what does that do to us if we do it? And how long can we stretch that over? And it'll increase the operating budget. Because it wouldn't be a tax increase. This would have to be done out of just reallocating funds.
So one thing that was said was, we could choose a path, we could choose a plan, and reevaluate each year and become more aggressive if we wanted to. I guess what I would be looking for is any kind of guidance in terms of if we know right now, what we could reasonably do. I'd like to see a 2-year plan to get this in line.
I'd wait till I saw new growth
Okay.
that comes in, because I think that's going to be the key number that lets us know what we have available. Because it's not a question of if we do it, we have to do it. It has to be done, and there's really only 2 ways to do it. You either increase the revenue, increase the expense that's allowable in the department, or you, by increasing the budget, or you decrease elsewhere. I mean, it's 2 ways to go with it. And that's what we have to figure out, what's the right way to go.
So does this mean that we can't exactly make a decision tonight on a plan for a path to handle this? Do we pick a plan like 3 years and then see if we can be more aggressive once we see new growth?
I would say I'd be comfortable saying not to exceed the 3-year option and try to get it done in 2. I mean,
Okay.
that's my idea.
Ooh,
Yeah.
That would be a great motion, Craig.
that's great.
I'll make
Can
a
I ask-
motion.
Can I ask one more question?
Yeah.
Just one more question.
Yeah.
At the very beginning, you talked about this differential. There's a differential, 12%. We got it down from 25 to 12. Can you talk about that for a second?
Sure. When we did the analysis, we're asked to work with the town the first year, fiscal '21, to do the analysis. At that point, we saw the differential at about 25%. But we also pointed out in our report that there was a number of unknowns in our analysis because of the lack of data that we were looking for. So, I'll give you one example, and you heard Mr. McKay speak about this earlier in the appointments, about licenses that DPW staff were required to have. We didn't have, because the town wasn't collecting good data on how to allocate the cost of those licenses
I
to
get
the
that.
3 different enterprise funds. And we pointed that out in our report. We said, we made a good faith estimate, but we don't have really strong data.
Okay, so we did a better job so that's when you label things now, they can be put in the right places, so now your data is more exact. You can read that data better and get the number better.
Exactly.
So we cut it in half.
It was cut in half. The analysis showed that, in fact, it was cut in half because, and again, when you look in the final report, for the summary of each enterprise fund, there's a notes column. And so where the numbers change from one year to the next, because they did get cut in half.
Okay.
I've put in the notes column, a brief sentence, here's why. Here's the
Okay, I get
explanation.
that, but now we're at 12%, we're still at 12%.
Yes.
Okay. Is that a good number? Is that a bad number? Should we be at 2%? I don't know what that means.
You should be even, so to speak. You should be billing and charging your ratepayers an amount that is equal to your indirect costs.
Okay, so are we, are we working toward that, do you know?
Well, that's, I think...
That's what we're discussing right now.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's
Yeah,
really
we've gone-
the question at hand, yes.
Right, we've
Okay.
gone from 25 to 12. The goal within the next 1 to 2 years is to get that to 0.
Okay,
And that's what this plan's going to do.
got it.
And, yeah, and there were also, besides just the reallocation, there were some staffing changes that were made that
Okay.
put more funds into DPW directly.
Okay.
We did address a big chunk of it, and that's what's going to require one more time, probably, to put a big chunk of funds into DPW, one way or the other. Or, I mean, there's two ways. You can increase the funding, as I said, or you can make cuts. But either way, you have to get the reliance of this $81,000 out of the budget. And that's the decision that has to be made at budget time. I'm going to make a motion then
Okay.
that we implement the decoupling. We implement this plan to eliminate the $81,000 of gap in 2 years. I'm going to just put it out there for 2 years.
Okay,
Yeah,
It's aggressive. I second that.
I think it can be done.
all right.
We just have to commit.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes unanimously.
Yeah.
We'll be looking to shore this up in 2 years' time.
Yeah, not to exceed 2 years, but yeah, we can.
Not
if
to
we-
exceed.
Yeah, yeah. But I honestly think it's going to take some tough decisions. We're either going to have budget growth or reduction someplace, but we've got to get this problem solved. We can't just leave it hanging out there.
Yep.
Okay. That's
Very
good.
good. Good,
Really
thank
good.
you. And I'll just add, or close with, I've been doing this work, well, my whole career, almost 40 years. You have a top-notch staff. I enjoyed every minute working with them, very responsive, quick studies, bright people to work with, so you're very fortunate, particularly in this, this age where it's so difficult to get really excellent staff. You're very fortunate with the staff you have.
Well, thank you for that. I
Thank
think we
you.
all
You're
agree.
welcome. Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
evening.
Good, thank you.
Thanks, Carl.
Any questions, Madam Chair?
Sure.
Same questions. Thank you, Madam Chair. Kathy McGinnis, 78 Island Road. Because we have a new Select Board member, I was wondering if the town administrator, through the chair, could address how overtime for snow and ice staff, the DPW staff, for the water, sewer, and enterprise staff, how is that, how are their funds paid for overtime?
Well, actually, I think that's getting a little granular at this point.
I think we can try,
I mean, do you have, is that something that would make sense to speak to right now?
The best way to deal with it is maybe to have the DPW guy sit down with Ellen and do that with her and the questions she has to discuss that and see if that
That's reasonable.
changes your thought process on anything. I'd be happy to do that.
Okay.
Is it fair for the water, sewer, and enterprise ratepayers to hear this also? I just, a quick question would be, if the water superintendent plows, where is that overtime money? From what kitty does that come from, through the chair?
Should come from the snow and ice account.
Okay, so
Unless-
it's not, their hourly rate is not charged to the water and sewer enterprise funds?
Not the base pay is paid by the snow and ice account.
Okay. The overtime also?
Well, I'd have to look at their contractual agreements to answer that in detail, because they have, it's up to you.
Yeah, go
They
ahead.
have
You can
stipulations
answer it.
within their contract that talk about overtime that might have some
So,
impact on that.
Any snow and ice that goes out on the road, a person goes out, it's paid under the snow and ice
Okay.
records. Their licenses are taken out of that hourly rate, and it's charged back to whatever department it comes from, whether it's the, if he has water licenses, we use the superintendent as a question. So all his water licenses come back out of, and it's not charged to the general snow and ice budget, it's charged back to the water department.
Because it's
Because
a
he
license.
has to maintain those
Right.
licenses. The same with his contractor's license. That's charged back to the general fund.
Okay.
But may I ask a question? Those licenses are paid not on an hourly basis, but a weekly
No,
basis?
they're paid on an hourly basis.
Required by contract.
Yes.
And by law to be paid on an hourly basis. So if
That's what
someone
we
gets
were just
paid,
looking at on the contracts that we were reviewing.
I'm sorry.
I thought that was just part of the contract we're reviewing. I'll talk to you later about it.
Yeah, we can go into
Yeah.
the nitty-gritty.
Yeah, I
on
think that what happened is that those hourly rates were, they were negotiated into, and they were supposed to disappear, and were supposed to be part of the person's hourly rate. But when the study came about, it was looked at to pull those licenses out and to re-separate them again for specific reasons, like overtime. So like if David goes out tonight and he does line painting out on 109, he'll be paid out of the general fund for all that overtime, but whatever his hourly rate for his licenses will be taken out of his pay and charged back to the water, and it's all water, there's no sewer licenses.
I mean, I don't see how else you're going to do that if we have people that, I mean,
I was under the
we need-
impression by looking at the contract stuff that it was a stipend of a certain amount per
No more
paycheck.
stipends. There's only
Okay.
one stipend.
Stipends.
Okay.
All right,
So
Okay, thank you.
we can take a
That's
look
good.
at that. But
Yeah.
that's basically the answer, is that if there's a specific stipend related to a water license, then
Okay.
any charge to that for the license is to the water enterprise.
Can I follow up on
And
that,
we've
Madam
had
Chair?
conversations with Carl about that, on the best way to track that and so forth.
okay, maybe just one more question.
Okay, well, I got a few, Madam Chair. Just to, again, to educate the new select board
Actually,
member.
we're not going to educate the new select
I
board
know.
member
Well,
right now.
educate me then. There's,
okay.
excuse me, let's say a water and sewer employee makes $25. $20 is for the regular, and $5 an hour is for his licenses. Why is the water and sewer paying that extra $5 an hour while this fellow is out on the road removing snow and ice?
Sounds like it's contractual from what we just discussed.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a philosophical component to this that I think there's some differing opinions on. I know we did speak with Carl about some guidance to that, about what generally happens in other towns. And generally, because the water license doesn't serve any purpose for the snow and ice clearing, that the snow and ice doesn't cover that cost, that it's the only benefit to the town for that license is to the water enterprise. So
that.
that's why it's that. And I appreciate the philosophical argument as to whether that's right or not, but that's how we do it. And we are required to pay that stipend under the current contract.
All right, so at this point, we're going to move on to the next thing on our agenda, and that's the continuation of the fiscal year '23 water sewer stormwater rate hearing. Now, for this one, we just got this documentation very recently.
Let's share it as well, right?
Okay, so what I wanted to just briefly say about this is, if we don't feel we've had enough time to digest this information, we could choose to not act tonight, but we will need to act by next Monday. So we would have to have a brief meeting next week on Monday to handle
Okay, let's
this.
bone up on it.
I'm ready.
So you could have another week to digest the information if we feel we need it, but otherwise, we could work, go through this tonight. So, Mr. McCaffrey.
Thank you. So, Michael Schrader, I hope I said that name correctly, is with us. Michael's been doing our rate studies for the past 5 or 6 years. And this was a brief look at our rates to keep them conforming, that we bring enough revenue back into the town to move forward. This will be the last year that, he'll be doing this type of, next year he'll be doing a full-blown, study on all the enterprise funds. The good news is, and then Michael will explain, we're looking at I'll give you the rate increase that we're asking for the 3 individual enterprise funds, and then Michael can discuss it and how we got to that determination. We're looking for a 5% increase in the water rates. We're looking for a 5% increase in the sewer rates. And again, we're looking for a 0% increase in stormwater rates. The main reason for not looking for an increase in sewer stormwater is that we've kept everything. We have not gone out to build these big projects that may be coming down the road because regulations have not implemented them yet. They are coming. The one that we had on Village and Birch Street, you've heard that for how many years now? We implemented something there that we think hopefully is going to take care of the problem of the flooding in that area, and knock on wood, it has for the past year and a half to 2 years. The increase in the rate for what is called the paying assessment, that's going to go up to $72.13. And again, Michael will explain why we got into that. In the rate study that we did 5 years ago, we're almost still on track of the increases. I mean, stuff goes up. I mean, the price of chemicals go up. The DPW project, that is in both the water and sewer, is being financed in this year. This is the first year that's been implemented in there. Chemicals prices have gone up. We're getting charged an excessive amount of, just like everybody else, for a delivery charge, for gas charges. That's been sent to us. And again, the chemicals have gone up. The salary aspect hasn't gone up on the water and sewer or stormwater because we're in negotiations with Ask Me Council 93. So I will turn it over. We've been working on this for 3 weeks. Carol and Mike and myself met with Deirdre and Jen through this whole process, and we do recommend, and they can speak for themselves, but we did come to a consensus that this is what we have to recommend to keep the funds going.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, good evening.
Hello.
It's nice to see you again. Welcome. So this tails nicely onto the previous presentation as well, and when the gentleman said to recover the full cost of service, and that, well, the full cost of the DPW, which is we refer to as the cost of service, which is the cost it takes to do everything that you need to do in your enterprise. As Jim said, this is a one-year update, and it's based on the actual expenditures and revenues for FY22, and then the budget, the established budget for FY23. So there's not a lot of estimating or speculating. The only exception is on the for the revenue for FY23. Unlike when he was talking about the indirect costs and looking at a 3-year average, with water and sewer, it trails very much on usage. So last year, the usage for water was down 10% from the year before because we had a wet summer. So that's how water and sewer goes. And you get about, on water, you get about 60% of your revenue comes from usage, and on sewer, it's a little bit higher because you have that capital tax, or the capital fee that Mr. McKay just mentioned. So what we do is we look at what we think the FY22 year is going to close at in terms of net revenue. So that's that middle column. And so just starting from the top, I understand you got this late, but just to try to go through it with you, at the top is the revenue, and that was based on actuals, year-end close, FY22 in the bank. Then you come down, all the way down to grand total, and you'll see that the capital spot is blank. It's because, we'll say the town is handling that a little bit differently, and it's been either transferred to reserves or the costs are still there, they're just allocated differently. So we're just not showing it broken down the way we had previously, but the numbers are still there. So when you get down to the bottom, the grand total expenses, that is the actuals for FY22. That's what you spent. You subtract what you made from what you spent, and you come up with a $41,000 surplus, which is right there. That's a very thin, surplus. And you add that to the previous year's balance, the retained earnings balance, and that's the start for FY23. So when we looked at FY23, again, it was an established budget, approved budget, so that was the, that's what we went off there. And then you look at the rates, and for the rates, it's two parts, right? You're going to make a guess or an estimate or a projection for usage, which is shown on the bottom of page 3. So we have FY20, 21, 22, and then 23. 20, 21, and 22 are known. That's, in the history books. And so, based on, on the usage patterns, we estimated or projected that it would go up 3.6%, which is, you can see 2 years ago it went up 16.9%, then it went down 10%. So I try to be conservative. I don't want to say it's going to go back up to, especially, Mr. McKay was just saying, right now, try to put a factor on anything between, supply chain disruption. Gas is twice what it was last year. You hear stories, people can't get pipe for a year for projects. So it's really difficult to know. Even COVID drove usage up in residential areas, and you wonder, is it going to go back down? Is it going to stay up? So anyway, what we do is we take the existing rates and the existing, rate structure, apply it to the projected usage and say, well, what do we get? How much do we get for that? And I looked, and it was a little too lean, in my opinion. So we wanted to increase it. That projected retained earnings for next year, let's say, is only $253,000, which is maybe 11% of your operating, maybe a little bit more if you. Oh, there is not a lot of capital in '23, so it's about 11%, which is roughly half of what we generally would like to see. But we didn't want to, I think you guys are just talking about this, right? Do you go with the aggressive? Do you go with the budget sensitive? This is the budget sensitive. So instead of going, to a higher increase to try to get that back in 1 year, we go with a more modest increase. So if you look, if you flip to the back on the last page, you can see what those rates go up by. Now, the difference is with the capital assessment fee is that's intended to recover the cost of debt for the water enterprise. So that the user rates cover basically everything else, and they go up and they go down. Well, they don't go down, but they go up in accordance with what we think the expenses are going to go up. The capital assessment fee goes up in proportion to what the debt service is this year versus what it was last year. Or I take it back, what the rate was generating. So the rate was a little bit low, and the the debt went up 34%. So we take that and apply that to that capital assessment charge, and it goes from $43.91 to $73 in reflection of that.
Okay.
But the rest of the rates are all in lockstep, that 5% increase. So if you look down, what I like to do, because it is hard to just, think about all these things at once, we show what the typical residential impact would be. And by typical, I think of it as like a serving size, right? That, you get a pizza, it's roughly the same size no matter where you go. But if you use averages, some people use a lot of water, some people don't use hardly any water. So we just pick this serving size. So I picked 3 people in a household using 60 gallons a day, which is like a national average. It's a reasonable amount of water. The state's goal, by the way, is 65 gallons per day for water conservation, so which includes, a fair amount of non-discretionary use. And you can see that in a year, from 22 to 23, that annual increase would be about $130 or about $33 on each bill. So that's intended to help, people like you just quickly get your arms around, whatever we're talking about.
That is very helpful.
So, well, it's hard to relate, to 100 different things, and it's also, what I find is that the percentages tend to be inflammatory, and people get, and then at the end, it's like, well, it's $50, and so it just helps put things in context. So, anyway, flipping over to sewer, basically the same thing. The sewer, more of the revenue is directly related to usage because there is no capital fee. And if you look down to expenses, the last two, Millis doesn't have a treatment system. It's a consecutive system. So you send all your flow to the Charles River plant, which is a good thing, right? It's better not to own one. But the O&M costs, so just like you share your indirect costs back to your the ratepayers, they share their costs back to their constituent communities. So you're paying a pro rata share based on flows and loadings, or however they calculate that, for O&M and for assessment. I live in Medway, so we pay it too. And their O&M costs went up by a projected 15%. They're not projected, from last year to this year. So that's, one of the things there that's driving that up. And then, across the board, operating and maintenance, that always scares me. I don't know how much to escalate things, or construction costs. We're escalating now at 8% a year, and sometimes I think like twice that would be better, but, it's hard to get that done. So similarly, we look at, again, I show the projections for sewer based on, analysis of the usage data. And we also added, a conservative amount of customers based on what's been going on, in the past. And then additionally, in the non-rate revenue, I added, kind of a conservative low estimate of what connection fees would look like for the following year. So when we do that, again, it came out just a little low, so we recommended a 5% increase there. Keeping in mind there wasn't any increase last year, so it's, it's like 2.5% across. And again, so that you have something to act on when you're ready, to get the rates there that are shown. And then the residential impacts for sewer are actually less. So they didn't have to, I don't know, just the, one of the ways the numbers work out. So that's really it. I mean, there's not a lot of, projecting capital and things, and, this is looking at last year, looking at this year, this is what we think. So.
Okay.
And then just to keep in your mind that rate increases are hard, and I know that, the decision, but making them now, it helps down the road when costs keep going up. It's not as big of a bite in a future year, so.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Do you guys have some questions?
Not on the sewer and water. I was able to follow that one. Stormwater, going up 0%, and there's no details on here. I was wondering what the retained earnings is for the storm, and you don't do stormwater.
So it's, I will next year.
Yeah.
But it's right now, it just wasn't,
Yeah.
I don't know, we haven't done it, and you actually do have the retained earnings.
Yeah, if they just have the retained earnings, that would be helpful.
Okay.
It's like 200, I believe the retained earnings that was reported, that was approved by the DOR last year that we have, it's not been approved for this fiscal year, none of them.
Yeah.
It's like 285K.
Okay.
I think it's,
And I'm just curious, you've mentioned we didn't have to do all the projects that we've been saving for and building for, and I'm getting the water, I'm following that pretty well, and I'm seeing that that's really well laid out. Without seeing the details in the stormwater, I would like to see the impact of a $25 versus a $33 per unit cost, what that would do to retained
Sure,
earnings.
we could ask Kleinfelder to look into that, to see what that cost would be. That would be a town meeting vote, I believe, because it's in the bylaw.
Yeah, but I'd like to just see if we could see about a reduction there, because I don't think there's much choice except for the increase on the other ones. But that's the only one I'd be curious about.
I'm sorry, it's 577K that was approved.
I'm very interested in it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay, so I'd be very interested to see.
But that, I think that was added, there was 285, and then we added the next year, 220.
Yeah, so that would be good to see, if we could see a reduction there from 33 to 25 and the impact of that. To avoid a meeting next week, I mean, if we voted the water and the sewer rates and stormwater, I don't think it goes out for a while, but I don't want to get behind on the billing
you're right.
cycle. So I'm.
Yeah, we could address the, at the August 22nd, the stormwater. But would we have to publish, or how would you handle, would you keep the rate hearing open, or would you close? Because it's all three of them together, or they were posted together. Would we have to republish the stormwater? I think you would.
Could we keep it open and just
No,
vote these
because you
two
can't.
right now?
No,
No,
I'm not 100% sure, but I don't believe you can.
no, I don't think you can. I think you have to close a public hearing.
You have to close the hearing in
And then-
order to
No discussion except for you.
take a vote.
And then would we have time to post another one for stormwater only?
You could open
Without
another hearing.
running, yeah.
You could post and open another hearing for stormwater at a later time.
Decision on stormwater, then.
You could leave it 0 for now, and then the board could
Yeah, what's the deadline on that?
post,
We gotta have the bills out for that by, what, October? They usually go to October 14th,
Yeah.
so.
I just don't want to get behind on the water and sewer, and I don't think there's anything that's going to change my
No,
mind.
please.
Yeah, water and sewer needs to be done.
Yeah,
Okay, so I'm going to ask Kleinfelder for a vote of reduction from the 33 to 25.
yeah.
Per, yep,
For the water and sewer, once you vote, then they put it on the website, and then we have to advertise in the paper.
for 10 days.
All right, that's fine, so. I'll make a motion, oh, go ahead.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Did the board close the public comment part, or is that still?
No, we haven't
open?
done
Yeah,
that.
so,
Yeah.
So I'm not
yeah,
sure.
so you'd have to see if there's anything else, and then close the
You
public
close
comment.
first.
Okay.
Close the public hearing.
Is there any public comment?
I have a question.
Sure, come on up. If you could just identify yourself, please.
Yeah, my name's Jim Duffy, Exchange Street, Millis. There's some data in here I don't find, but the question is, why is the capital increasing $115 essentially from, according to this chart, 175
that's a yearly.
to 291?
It's, like I said, the intent of the capital fee is to recover the debt for water. So in 2022, debt was $616,000. It went up to $823,000. So we increased the rate of that capital fee enough to generate the $823,000 going forward.
Did that rate increase, was that the PFAS plant that's generating that? Or is that, no, it's not, okay. I didn't know if there's short-term borrowing in there for PFAS.
The
What
short-term
is it?
borrowing was like $70,000.
Yeah,
So what is it?
yeah, I'm
I
curious.
believe it was the DPW facility, is that correct?
That was one of
It's
them.
the
that
water,
went up.
That was just one of them.
yeah.
Well, right there, 200,000 is 818, so 816, so there's like 5,000 more. So, yes, DPW facility.
Okay.
Okay.
Where are those numbers? I'm sorry, in this chart?
Yeah.
Point them out on the thing over here. Do we know what we're talking about?
Sure.
Madam Chair, what I was going to propose, I mean, because this has not been posted on the website, you know,
It
if
is.
approved.
It is, actually.
Oh, you did put it on, okay.
Yep.
So if anyone's looking for it, it's under the select board agenda,
Okay.
on the select board page, under 17.
So what we would have to do is I would post this on the DPW website also with the, if approved, we have to post the rates
Right.
for 10 days and post it in the newspaper, but we will also post it on the town website, all this information.
Okay, thank you. Is there any further comment? All right.
Close the public hearing.
I need to close the hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the hearing.
Second?
Been moved
that
and
was the cue.
seconded to close the hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Hearing is closed. Now we can further deliberate or take a motion.
Well, I'll make a motion to increase water and sewer by 5% and stormwater by 0%, with the understanding by our August meeting that we'll have another analysis of stormwater with another posted hearing. I got to vote the rates.
We have planned to post it, yes.
Do I have to vote the
Madam
actual
Chair?
rates?
May I-
Yes.
I suggest that you vote to approve the rates that are shown here
Okay.
on, because they're not all 5%. The capital fee
idea.
goes up by more.
Oh, okay.
Well, now I'm just going to wing it. I'm going to approve the rates for water and sewer as published here, with the water rate. Would I be voting the FY23 at 350.53 and the capital
Yes.
fee of 261? Okay, I
Yep.
got it now. First time I've had to make a motion on these. I move that we approve the water charges of $350.53. Nope, that's not it. That's the
impact.
that's the impact, where the actual
May I
rates.
suggest?
Yes.
Yes.
You made
A
direct.
motion to approve the rates shown on page 3 of the handout today for proposed water rates for FY23 for the water and sewer.
I'll make a motion that we adopt the water and sewer rates as published on page 3 of the handout. There we go.
Second?
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the rates as published on page 3 of the handout for water and sewer. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, so next, it's Mr. McKay again. So next, we have the review and approval of an application for financial assistance, drinking water and lead service line inventories and replacement plans. You're
Right, now-
popular this evening.
I'm sorry.
Go
So,
ahead.
no, I'm done after this one. So, good news, what I'm asking that the town administrator be able to enter into a contract with both the Mass DEP and the Kleinfelder in the amount of $139,000 for another unfunded mandate of lead service inventory. What is?
I can share my screen, Jim.
Sure. So there's a couple of handouts that Kleinfelder put together with me for this. I'm not going to read all of it, I'll just try to break out the highlights. So the grant is through for $139,000. And what's happening, just like PFAS, this is, I can't imagine what this is going to cost the ratepayers, in future years. What we're going to have to do is identify, so we know our water system in the main roads, there's no lead in it, but that doesn't mean that there's no lead services coming off of the water mains. So it would be up to the ratepayers of the system that we would have to pay for all the lead services to be replaced from the water main to the sidewalk control. And then, unfortunately, it's up to the homeowner to come up with replacing it from the sidewalk control into their house.
Got it.
But we have to come up with a plan.
I think the second slide shows it pretty well.
Yeah, okay. Could I jump ahead of it?
There's a
Yeah.
picture.
Yep, it shows it right there. So we own up to that blue, to that stop there, and then the homeowner has to replace it all the way. And we're ahead of this, not that we're ahead of the schedule, but I mean, we don't have engineering staff to put all this stuff together. We have to go outside and hire a firm to do this. They will come in and they will identify, which we have in our tie cards and stuff like that, where all these lead services are. They will put it together, they will put the program together, and then we have, that identifies it, and then we have to come up with a plan of how are we going to replace all those lead services. And then we have to assist the homeowner in some way. The ratepayers have to assist each ratepayer through a loan program or something, but we have to have something in place by October of 2024, which is only fair.
I have questions. So, and I did read this, but now I have other questions. So identifying the lead, is any of this helping? So would anything indicate if there is lead, does that mean that that homeowner likely also has lead, or is that not an assumption you can make?
No, if there's a lead service coming from the street, it's lead all the way to the house. And it's usually,
Okay.
there was a certain year that lead was used in,
Yep.
in developments. In Millis, I think there's maybe 2 or 3 developments that I know of that lead was used.
Okay.
And then we do our lead testing in that. And then there's some of the older homes,
Yep.
like on Himmelfarb Street. I know there's some up on Pleasant Street, even some of them that have lead in them. And even up on the Glen Ellen side, there are some developments up there that still have lead services that we test. Walnut Street, almost every house on Walnut Street may have, lead services.
Okay, and we're saying that all of that needs to be remediated by October 20?
No, we have to come up with a plan of how,
Plan
and then
by
I
then.
think there's,
Okay.
so many years for it to.
Gotcha, okay.
But right now, it's to accept the grant, is what we're voting.
Yeah, all we're voting for is to accept the grant, and that the town administrator can sign the contract with the Mass DEP, because it's like a 100-page document for that, and then Kleinfelder would like to, once approved, I mean, they'll start working on it, of course. I mean, they did submit this grant on our behalf, with our input for this, so.
Yeah. I'll make a motion to allow the town administrator to sign the grant, accept the grant for $139,000, and enter into the agreement with Mass DEP. Is that where or it would be
Yep.
Kleinfelder? Mass DEP.
Mass
to-
DEP and Kleinfelder.
And Kleinfelder to proceed with this program.
Thank you.
Second?
Okay, Okay, it's been moved and seconded to authorize the town administrator to enter into the contract with DEP and Kleinfelder. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously.
So if I can quickly update the board on, I just heard from Congressman Auchincloss's office, because I was hoping to give better news tonight at the, so it's good news, bad news, we're still in the running for our PFAS grant. They will be voting on it. Dana just told me tonight that within the next 2 weeks.
Okay.
But we're still in there.
I'll keep everything crossed.
We're still there.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. All right, next we have Mr. Moore to discuss the possible adoption of Mass General Law, Chapter 59, Section 5, clause for 22H for Gold Star families and residency requirements for property tax exemptions.
Yes. Good evening, Select Board. I'm John Moore, the Millis Veteran Services Officer, and the two articles I have for legislative approval is first, reduce the veteran residency requirements for local tax exemptions, abatements, and then the second one is to adopt Clause 22H, which is part of the Mass General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 22H of veteran services and veteran tax abatements. So we'll go to the first one, the residency requirements. If somebody moves to Millis and has, if we have a disabled veteran to move to Millis, there's a 2-year wait. And what I'm asking is to reduce that to a 1-year wait to receive those tax abatements. I called local municipalities around here, and they do have that 1 year that they already passed. So I think it was actually an oversight. As a cost to Millis residents, we average about one disabled veteran to move into Millis per year. That's what I've seen the last 5 or 6 years. And that's $175. So this is largely symbolic, as Massachusetts reimburses 82.5% of all the abatements to veterans. The rest is the local town has to pay for. So just asking to reduce veterans' residency requirements from 2 years down to 1 year prior to the beginning of that current tax year. And the second one is Clause 22H, and this is for the parents, Gold Star parents of deceased service members. As of now, Millis doesn't have, thank God, parents who've lost a child in combat. So I guess that's the good news. And this is a 82.5 reimbursement from Massachusetts, but this is full tax abatement for that Gold Star family. As of right now, 60% of all, it's going through, all the towns are approving this. So again, this is also, I think, largely symbolic. As of right now, 60% of all Massachusetts towns have adopted Clause 22H, or they're working on it. And the goal by Massachusetts Veterans Services is to have all Massachusetts towns adopt this clause by the end of the year. So I guess any questions on that?
Any questions?
Nope. I had two, but you answered them.
Okay.
And I believe, Madam Chair, that these would need to be approved at the town meeting to be ratified. So essentially, the board would just need to make a determination to accept these on the fall annual town meeting warrant to put them in place. And I think that, as Major Moore stated, the key issue here, or the key component to remember, is the state does reimburse 82.5% of this. So even if we were to get an influx of some folks coming into town, the cost to the local property taxpayers is fairly low. And certainly a great thing to do for the veterans who have given so much for us.
And as of right now, there's one veteran who did move out of state to Millis, who I had to break the news to him that he's got to wait 2 years, and he wasn't, too
I'll make
excited
a
about
motion that we these two items, Clause 80, or 22H, and the veterans residency reduced to 1 year on the next town meeting warrant.
Second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to add the 22H and the residency requirement reduction to fall town meeting warrant. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So next, we have the Permanent Building Committee presentation for the proposed senior center options.
Do you have my materials?
Oh,
good.
Just gotta help me when I need to change the page.
Be happy to. Good evening.
Good evening.
Wayne Clocko, 85 Walnut Street, Chairman of the Permanent Building Committee, here to report on all of the activity that the Council on Aging and the Permanent Building Committee have been engaged in getting the word out regarding the Senior Community Center project proposal. And so we're here tonight to present to you the findings as a result of all of that information. And just to recap, we had 4 focus groups, 2 in the afternoon, 2 in the evening. The last one was the end of June. Everyone was very well attended. Some were standing remotely. The information from the architect, the full report, is posted online on the town website, on the Council on Aging homepage, on the Permanent Building homepage. The presentation materials from the focus group is on there. We've developed an FAQ, frequently asked questions, document to answer many questions that people had regarding the proposal, like, is the Cassidy Farm property too wet to construct? And lots of questions like that. So we posted that. And most recently, the last focus group was videoed, and it's my understanding that that is now on Millis Cable News Network, and so people can see that. So I think we've done a very good job of getting the word out. People understand what the potential options are all about. And what I'd like to go through tonight is what the results were, what the feedback was that we got from those focus groups. And the screen is really kind of this is a summary of all 4 of those sessions, and you can see that by far the preferred option is the Cassidy Farm option with the gym, which is, by the way, the $21 million option, the most expensive option. It is more than double, or roughly twice the response to either of the other 2 options. So it is statistically clear that the town would prefer the option at the Cassidy Farm with the gym. You can see that there is, the second item there is the undecided or do nothing. That is a substantial portion, and people are still thinking about it, and there are people that are opposed to it. So that certainly captures those sentiments as well. Can we go to the next slide? And now I will just briefly go through the various options. This is the option for adding on to this building, the VMB. This is the $15.5 million option. And you can see that what we've done here is we have slides that capture both the positives and the negatives for each option. And certainly the central location and the cost are the 2 leading factors here. And Karen, can we move on? Then the negatives for this option
deal with connecting onto this building, being part of it is a 100-year-old building, and all of the costs that go in with adding on to an existing facility, the disruption that it would have to operations, parking, and an assortment of other issues. All right, let's keep going. The Cassidy farm with the gym. People like that option because it has more utility to the entire town. It not only has utility for the seniors, the growing senior population, but it also is available for the entire community. And there's always been an issue of enough recreational space in town, and that is the leading factor there. The negative is by far the cost. And I will tell you that from other projects that the Permanent Building Committee has been in, this is not an unusual response. It's always a question of, we'd like to have something, but can we really afford the cost? And so you're seeing the same kind of situation here. I think the town would like to have this, but for the expense. And so that's the sentiment that I think is produced here. And then finally, we have the Cassidy option without the gym.
I think you shot past it.
Yeah.
I think it's slides 5 and 6, or 4 and 5. 4 and 5. Go to slides 4 and 5, yeah. There you go, back one more.
Keep going.
Yep. There you go.
All right. So this option, people like this option because it's new construction. It's more expandable. There's more open space, more parking. There are a lot of favorable factors to the Cassidy option. The negative is the location. That's the major factor. People still don't like the cost on all of these, and you can see that here. But the not being in the center of town is the major factor here. So the Permanent Building Committee feels that it's done its job in presenting 3 viable options to the town to inform the community and to solicit their feedback, and that's what you have here. And so the question really is to you as to whether or not you will make a recommendation or place an article on the November warrant for one of these options as to whether or not it is something that you would support. I would tell you that in looking at the tax impact between the cheapest option, the $15.5 million option here to this facility, and the most expensive option, the $21 million option, is about $100 a year for the average assessed value home in Millis. So the $420,000 average assessed value home, based on the assumptions that the treasurer gave us about bonding and 30-year bond and rate and all of that. For that value of home, it's about $100 per year. At the highest level that we measured, at $850,000 assessed value, the difference in tax per year is about $170 a year. So, and you can see that even the difference between the VMB option at $15.5 million and the Cassidy without the Cassidy farm option at $16 million without the gym, the difference is negligible to the taxpayer. So it's really up to you. We think that we've done our job up to this point in time until, you either give us more direction on something you'd like us to do in relation to studying the matter, or if it is approved, then we would certainly be involved in the next steps to actually bringing this to fruition.
Thank you. First, I want to say thank you to the Permanent Building Committee, because you guys have done a fantastic job with this. I was able to attend one of the focus group meetings, and the presentation was great, and there was a lot of interaction. I think people were able to get involved and have their voices be heard during these focus groups, so I think that was really well done.
Thank you.
So thank you very much.
Well, that's the point. That's what we understood our role to be, and so I'm glad to hear that you feel that we accomplished that.
Absolutely. To my colleagues, do you guys have any specific questions for Mr. Clarko and the committee?
No.
I have no, I've had the advantage of attending 2 focus groups and been involved in this project. 2019, did we start back then?
We did.
Before the pandemic, yeah.
We did.
So I've seen this quite a bit.
Okay.
So
And you don't have any?
I have no
specific-
none
specific
for-
questions.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
I have thoughts, but no
All right,
questions.
we can get into that then. Okay?
Okay, all right.
Thank you very much. All right, let's get into thoughts.
Well, having had the advantage of attending the meeting since 2019 and attending 2 of the 4 focus groups, I'm pretty well informed on it, and I don't think there's any argument there needs to be better services for seniors in the town. I do have concerns about all 3 of these options. The cost, it's a very expensive project, and I'm not 100% confident that if we build it, they will come. I mean, that's the argument we're basically making, that there's 64, I believe it's 64 people per day typically using it. If you triple that, is that enough to justify a $21 million project? So that's my concern. I'm going to pause for just a moment. I think that we do have the responsibility as a select board to put it on the ballot and put it on the warrant, because there has been a lot of work and the voters do have the right to weigh in on it. Having said that, I am still very concerned about the cost of it. And there's a difference between voting to put it on a warrant and put it on a ballot and endorsing it. I want to be clear on that point. And if I had to pick which selection I would choose, which option I would choose, I would have picked the Veterans Memorial Building for a lot of the reasons. But I'm not the focus group. I respect the effort that went into it. So at this moment, I'm leaning very much towards putting the recommendation from the focus group that came out onto the warrant and the ballot, although I have deep reservations about personally or as a select board member recommending that this be something the town pursue. I think it's absolutely our obligation to put it out there so the voters have a say on it. We've been talking about it for so many years. We need to get the vote done on it. But so I don't want anybody to think that I'm endorsing it by saying that it needs to go on the warrant. There'll be time for that as we have more discussion. And I also think we have to get a vote to put it on the warrant and the ballot as soon as possible, so those that are in favor of this can start their campaign, and those that are opposed to it can start voicing their opposition. I think it doesn't do us any good to drag out more focus groups or anything else. I originally thought we'd have some meetings to think about it, we'd have some discussion. But at this point, there's been 4 well-attended focus groups that have voiced their opinion. I'm not sure we'd hear anything different. And I think now it's time to put a concrete plan out and let people weigh in pro and con to that concrete plan. So that's my thoughts.
Well, I appreciate those thoughts, and I will raise you. No. So I've been involved with this, and I do appreciate those thoughts. So where am I with this? I've been talking for months now about the time element to get this message out, right? So we're getting into August. Our next meeting's August 22. The focus groups, they did a great job, right? Every issue came out You did exactly what you were supposed to do. I mean, I really never seen anything like it. I was at 3 of the 4 focus groups, heard everything. The same issues came over and over and over and over and over again. There's like a handful of them. The cost, how do we alleviate the cost? How do we help the seniors? Do we need it? My view with this is, if we put this, I believe, time is running out. Time is running out. Now, I agreed with Craig that I would have liked to have invited a group in, a really interested group in, after we disseminate some information and get a little bit more feedback. But time is running out. It's unfortunate that this hit in the summer. Our next meeting is in a month. My proposal would be, because there's still a lot of work to be done with the information that the focus group gave us. I don't think 2.5 months or 3 months is going to do it. I believe that if this were to be put on the ballot in November, it would not pass. It has to be 2/3 vote. It's hard. It's not enough time to get the information, to formulate responses to the focus groups, questions, and get that information out in a cohesive manner. If it fails in November, nobody going to look at it again. That's a sort of a death knell in my experience. My proposal would be to put this on the May ballot. It would give us enough time to, I have that committee that I was fortunate enough to put together. And there are so many things that we can do with this building. I'm just going to throw a couple out. We could find a space in there for a daycare, rent to somebody to run a daycare. We could maybe find some space in there, physical therapy, rent to somebody to come in. That would offset some bond requirements. It would bring income in. There is so much that can be done that can answer these questions, maybe satisfy my cohort enough. I don't think it's going to change anything to push it off until May as far as our positioning. I think it would send a message to the community that we are seriously considering their feedback. I think one of the biggest pieces that came out of this that we just couldn't seem to squash was the fact that the rendering on this plan that was presented to each of those focus groups was a rendering of this grand building. Grand, with sweeping ceilings and sweeping this and finishes that, and as much as we said, ignore that, this is a rendering, it's square footage only to accommodate the programs we want to provide. Nobody could get past it. And they seemed to think that that was the building. And all of that cost was to this opulence, and we don't want it. It was so hard because it was presented. And my understanding is on the budget that they had to plan it, they put in like the one that's in Marlborough or something. I mean, so these are small details that make a big difference in the minds of our citizens. And I don't want to lose the fact that in 9 years, if projections play out, more than 50% of Millis's residents are going to be technically seniors. That is huge for this town. And the fact that the building committee did this 50-year building, that's fantastic. And if we can get this to be a community aging in place, it's the senior center, and you think they go down and okay, let's have Tybo with Timmy. I mean, it can be so much more to it, to provide for this community, that I would love the opportunity to give it its best push. And if it fails, it fails on the merits, but not because it's a time squeeze and it's summer and there's inflation now and gas prices are high. You know, there's this confluence that may sink it that upsets me. That's my speech. And there's many members of the COA out there if they would like to speak. I've told a few, but anywho, it's a lot.
That was a lot.
I know, I'm a little emotional a little bit, but it's a lot.
Okay, so I can appreciate everything you're saying, and I appreciate what Craig's saying, and in terms of having a responsibility on the select board separate from whatever my personal opinion might be, I would want to also put forth something based on the recommendations that came from these focus groups for the town to decide. I think that's fair. I think all that work was done, and I think it would be then up to the voters. In terms of timing, I'm actually not even sure what I think about timing. I mean, I think it might be difficult to conceptualize some of this. So like you said about the images of the building, right? So I think some of that also comes down to fabulous ideas about daycare, PT, all that stuff. Great ideas. But it's not like we can present that as an absolute. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
These are just ideas of things that we could be doing, just like the building rendering was an idea. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So I think some of that can be difficult for folks to, it's a lot of money, and you can't really necessarily hang your hat on, relief like those businesses. Do you know what I mean?
I do.
So at this point, we don't
Madam
have.
Chair,
Oh.
can I just make a comment about the timing?
Sure, come on up.
Not related to
Yeah.
any of these suggestions.
Yep.
Lisa Harden, the town clerk, 56 Walnut. If you put it on the November town meeting, you could have it on the ballot in May. If you wait until next May,
Yeah.
then there's no scheduled election for a year. Now, which would mean that you'd probably have a special election that would just have that one topic on it. So that's something to bear in mind.
Yes.
Often in the past, when we've had a special election for one thing, it's been very close, and, it'll
Turnout
take more
Yeah. It's an
campaigning in order to probably pass.
Uh-huh.
The no people don't really need to get organized, because they're going to
get
come to
that.
vote on their taxes, and so you really need to push for a special.
Okay.
Not a special.
Can I ask a
It's just
question?
my,
I appreciate
Yeah, I
that.
got one question for the town clerk.
Oh, yep.
Yeah. Could it go on the November ballot this year? Is it?
no.
It cannot be added to the November?
No, you can only put a Prop 2.5 question on a state ballot.
Okay, so it can't go on a federal ballot. Okay. All right, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, yes.
And
Hold on.
I just have a few more thoughts. if you
Oh,
don't- if
okay.
you want to stick here.
Hold 1 second.
Yeah,
Yep. And then I'll have you come up.
I have a different view of voting. I mean, I'd rather vote it, as I said, in November, because the library, if you think back to that one, that went forward twice. The first time it went forward for a significantly larger bill than what we ended up with. It failed, came back with a scaled-down version that was literally, it was 1 story, not 2 story, cut the operating cost. It cut it down to, I think, 20 square feet over the state grant minimum size. So we dramatically reduced the size of it, dramatically reduced the cost. I think it removed $3 or $4 million from the estimated cost. But the reason that was done is because we got a pretty clear indication that the town didn't want the original library that was proposed,
I
because
get
it was
that.
much too large. So, I would try to get it out there on a vote as soon as possible at town meeting. It's unfortunate that there's going to be that longer gap between the two, because you want to get a clear answer. So if it's a no, then you can move on to another alternative solution that makes sense. We always talk about failing fast. So, if it's not going to work, don't drag it out. If it does work, that's great. but that gives you the time to adjust and make new plans if it doesn't go forward. So I would rather not wait till May town meeting than have to schedule a special for this, because I think that's
But
gonna
are
be
you,
counterproductive.
but are you suggesting that if it failed in November, that we could come back in May, just like the library?
Yeah,
So
you
you'd
could come
still-
back, you'd have to come back with a radically different plan. You're not going to come back and reintroduce a $21.5 million plan.
Right.
And whether that's ready, you don't get two bites of the apple for the same plan.
But then you'd still have the same problem with the November meeting, but
You may,
whatever.
and it may take longer to come up with an alternative plan. It took us about a year on the library to come up with an alternative plan, I think. I think it was almost a year, but.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just,
Hold on one second, if you could just identify yourself first.
Ellen
please.
Daly, Augusto Circle. I just have one thought. I have a lot of thoughts. I have a lot of thoughts on this, being on the Council on Aging for a number of years. But you have to realize that with COVID, we lost 2 years of that. We started in 2019, but we really lost 2 years in planning. And to go forward without really analyzing what people, we've heard what people think. Now we need to go forward and decide what we can do with those thoughts, how we can make this a viable option for our seniors. And what I'm asking is if we could have that time to go forth and deal with those options and offer them to the town before it all of a sudden becomes a definite no. So that's my thought. You know, we lost 2 years. We're asking for a little bit more time so that we can look at other options that Ellen.
So are you saying you're in favor, you'd be in favor of waiting until the Springtown meeting?
I would, in that it would give us more time to view all of those and maybe even get back to the townspeople, have other meetings with them, and show that we've heard what they said and that we feel that we've come up with a viable alternative.
Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Chairman?
thanks. Hold on. Oh,
Yeah, I've got just one thought on that.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, that would, if the Council on Aging made a formal request for us to delay it, that would sway me towards delaying it, because as Wayne has said at every project we've done, the Permanent Building Committee represents the client. The client in this case is pretty much the Council on Aging. If they don't want the project built right now or voted right now, and not a person from the Council on Aging, but the Council on Aging in a formal vote telling us that the majority of the, that they do not want us to put it on the ballot, that would hold sway. I'd consider a delay at that point.
That's a good point.
And the other point is the cost escalators are going to kick in as we keep
I know.
waiting, and there were some pretty significant cost escalators. But I'm not going to do something that the Council on Aging is opposed to for a senior center. That's why I was leaning towards option 2. Now, I want to be clear, I'm not endorsing it. I'm just saying the one I put on the ballot, I wasn't going to put something on the ballot that the Council on Aging doesn't want. That's why I was leaning towards 2A. But if they're saying don't put anything on the ballot, that carries a lot of weight as well.
Scott.
Thank you, Scott Fusey, 411 Union. I attended all the focus groups. I think Wayne and his staff did a tremendous job. I kind of agree with Ellen a little bit. I think my fear is we get this thing at town meeting in November, and it will fail. And then over time between November and the spring, the cost would rise up. I think if we give it till May, we have the time to have more meetings, possibly look at grants and do the things that we need to do. My fear is that people are jumping the gun, and we'll get in there in November, and we've seen it before. All of a sudden, oh my God, this is the price tag's too high. We have time between now and the spring. We can look at grants. We can look at whatever, talk to our state rep, see what we got to do. But we need to do something. I think if you've been downstairs, it's not, what it, like other communities and stuff, they have an option to grow. And, Medway put theirs on Oakland Street. I think Medfield's is, so, not all of them in other towns are in the center of town when it comes to the senior center. So I like to see if we could make it, wait till spring and get more information out there. Thank you.
Thanks.
Madam
And-
Chair,
Oh, just,
yeah, go ahead.
Just one thing for
Yeah.
you guys to consider. We don't have to make a decision about any of this tonight. We could we could chew on this and in our August meeting, determine if we're putting, we have time to determine if we're putting this on the fall.
Yeah, while we have the town clerk, I have one question for her that she can answer. Could we do a May town meeting, May ballot? There'd be no problem putting on both of those. And that doesn't cost us any time to speak of.
Well, in order to prepare the ballot, I have to know what's on it,
When?
6 weeks ahead.
Yeah, that'd be easily done.
Yes, we could certainly do that.
Every now and then.
You'd have to lock it
Broken
in
clock.
onto the ballot before you knew if town meeting was going to
Right.
approve it or not.
And
Which
that
means
happens
if
quite
town
often.
meeting doesn't approve it, the ballot wouldn't have any force and effect unless you had another town
that's-
meeting within
yeah.
a certain period of
That's good.
time to ask again. But you can do it that way. It's a
Right.
matter of form.
It could be on the ballot, but if it failed
But
town
failed
meeting,
town
it doesn't
meeting,
matter.
technically, it's
Yeah.
more of a referendum
Right.
than an actual binding question.
Yes, yeah, okay.
And I want to just say it one last time. I'm talking as somebody facilitating putting something on the ballot, not endorsing or not endorsing the project.
If you say you're not endorsing or endorsing it one more time.
I just want to be
I
clear.
think we
Bring
got
up-
I have said things so many times that came back.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Derwin, 60 Middlesex Street, and I'm also on the Council on Aging Board. And I just want to double down a bit on what Helen said. And Craig, you used the term "fail fast," but there's another term that says "scope for success." And I think rather than putting something out that we have a very high confidence is going to fail fast and build up the lack of goodwill, that we would be better served to take a little extra time and scope this for success better in May, when we can say we listened to the feedback from the focus groups. We heard very loudly that the cost was too high. As Ellen said, we understand the renderings were not appealing, that a lot of people said it didn't have a Millis look, it was too grand. And a picture is, you can say to someone, this isn't it, but when you put a picture on something, it gets stuck in their mind. And we absolutely have to get a different picture, something that's more appealing to the people that we spoke to. And we have to let them know that we are addressing the costs, that we heard them. There's no question, we still need a new senior center. The Council on Aging on board is still very much trying to endorse this. We completely endorse it, Craig, as kind of a contrast. But that we are open to looking at the feedback and making reasonable adjustments before we go for a vote, and that we need more time to get that done.
I'd like to ask a question to Mr. Klockow, if I could.
Sure.
Wayne, can I ask you a question? Do we have any funds left to change drawings or anything else?
Not only do we not have any funds left, the architect has really been gracious enough to provide support for all of the focus groups, really gratis. The original fee was $35,000. I think the town got an earmark for that. And that money was spent probably at least over a year ago.
Yeah.
So if there's a question about what the skin of the building looks like, and Ellen, I certainly have dealt with that issue over and over again. I don't know that if we put a different skin on the building, whether or not it will make a difference to people or not. I think you still will come down to a project that is, if you pay attention to the programming as to what needs to go on in this building, it's going to be a 15,000 square foot building, plus or minus. The cost is not going to change dramatically. And my point in highlighting the difference between the cheapest option at $15.5 million and $21 million to the taxpayers is about $100 to $170 a year. So it certainly is not my opinion to suggest one option versus another, but I hear all the comments, but my question is, in terms of whether or not the town decides to build this building, those differences are not material.
And I think that goes back to what I was thinking, Wayne. With no more funds left to do any more drawings, I don't, and I've heard it so many times, this is square foot cost. I mean, this is not, unless you're going to dramatically, I mean, if you cut it from 15,000 square foot to 7,500 square feet, you wouldn't get the programming that we've discussed, and you would dramatically cut the cost. But that's, and then you can make it look like whatever you want it to look like. But it's a square foot cost. This isn't based on any high-end
Right.
finishes, nothing else.
Exactly.
This is the size of the building we designed cost $21 million or $15.5 million, depending on where you put it.
And I've been privy
Yeah.
to comments about, well, maybe the town could develop some of the land that it already has in order to defray the overall cost. Again, depending on how much that might be, the impact to the taxpayer is going to be insignificant. Between a $15.5 million project and a $16 million project, I don't know how many parcels of land that might be. To the taxpayer, it's going to be insignificant.
Right.
Can I just say one thing? I don't disagree with what you're saying. I don't. But again, you say the cost is insignificant between this and this. That is a message that needs to get out there. That's a message that needs to get out there that did not get out there. There are a lot of messages that are there now that didn't get out there. As to the total square footage, I agree 100% with you. Somebody mentioned the Medfield and the Medway senior centers, both of which the towns have outgrown. The Medway Senior Center was outgrown before they opened the door when it was built. They rehabbed it 8 years ago, and they're still outgrown. Medfield is the smallest thing. They have no space for anything. So if this is going to be a true aging-in-place facility, the 15,000 square feet is not unreasonable at all. But again, I know the skin, whatever, there's no money left. Well, there's things we can figure out. I'm not concerned about I'm not concerned about some things. I'm just concerned about a time squeeze. And I agree with Elizabeth and Helen I don't think it's a good look to go out and fail. It just, to me, it's like, oh my God, and then you bring it back the next year, and they're like, well, haven't we seen this before? I mean, cocoon. I can just, it would have to be significantly different. And I don't think it's going to be significantly different.
Unless we
At the end-
put more money.
At the end
agree.
of the day.
Yes.
It's just to get the right message out there and that's all.
So I would just say this. I think what we heard from the focus groups was that the need was compelling. I think the Council on Aging did a terrific job of explaining what a new facility could actually do versus the services that are being limited by what they have today. But again, it comes down to the cost. Now, I will just simply tell you that the numbers that you have here are based on a project the construction that would start in 2023. So if it extends beyond that,
Got it.
there would probably be some kind of escalation, whether or not it's in terms of construction cost, bonding, inflation, and all of those factors would need to be reconsidered so that voters could have the most up-to-date information.
Yes. Hold on one second. She's next.
Thank you, Select Board. I'm Christine McCaffrey, member of the Council on Aging, and I live at 21 Jameson Drive. I heard the comment that to try to put it on the November town meeting after a late August meeting, a Select Board meeting, would be very difficult to get any information out to people. The other hat I wear, besides being on the Council on Aging, is election warden. On September 6th, there's a primary. The state primary takes place. And traditionally, we get 1,800 voters walk through the building at that time. And we talked about it at one point in time of having whatever decision you decide to make, to have a brochure ready to hand to every voter who comes in with what the new plan is. Put some of the questions and facts that we've had on it. That's one way of getting some information out for people who are going to be going to the November town meeting. You're not going to get all 1,800 people to come to the town meeting, but you'll be able to get some of them. We've been working so hard on this for such a long time, and I know the library failed the first time. I would like to give the citizens a chance to see it at the November town meeting. That's what they have been told ever since we started this process. In the focus group meetings, it's been, our plan is to put it on the November town meeting. So that's just my feeling. It's totally different than everybody else on Council on Aging. But I just found out all of this stuff tonight right before I came in. So this was all new to me about the May town meeting and all of that. So I did want to come up and give my view on putting it on the November town meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Duffy.
Jim Duffy, Exchange Street, Millis. I'll give you a perspective from an overburdened taxpayer and a member of the vociferous few on the Millis Public Forum.
Sorry.
I read the RFP document. I read everything I could get my hands on. I'll give you my perspective and what I believe a majority of the town perspective, or a large percentage of the town. At the public forums, there were only 3 options presented, and it should have been much clearer that there should have been a 4th option that people could have voted for, and that was cut it back, do nothing, do something else. The 24% you saw there, you should consider write-in, right? Those are write-ins. So that, to me, represents a much bigger mindset to the community, and certainly it's on the forum. This is a grand plan. I understand that. I have no context, and it wasn't clear to me at the public forum of this is what we offer now, and this is what the demand is, and therefore that's why we need 15,000 square feet. I heard a lot of the center is not inviting. I would say, well, what can we do for maybe fewer funds that would make the center more inviting and work with what we have? The last statement I will make is context. This is out of context for the grand picture of what is the town going to have to spend money on. What else is this town going to have to spend money on, right? There's already been the softening salvos of high school, and I don't even know what. That needs to get clearly represented to the townspeople, and it should be for every project that gets put forth is what's the context? Where is this in the overall scheme of things, and what does this mean? Because that's the most important critical aspect of this. My recommendation would be, I think there is sentiment that we would like to do something for the senior and make it more attractive. I think potentially someone should go back and look at, well, you know, do we make a big courtyard? What can we spend? I'll use some money. I'll use numbers. All right, what does $2 million get us? What does $5 million get us? When I see 21 million, I'm thinking, well, why does it have to be 21 million? Why can't it be 12? Why can't, that wasn't presented. I understand it's a square foot cost, but you're right. There's pictures of opulence and more offices and more space. So I think that's my feedback on this.
Christine Mccaffrey again. I'm sorry, I just want to make one statement. The seniors in this town have supported everything. Every school building, the town hall we are in, they have jumped their taxes to support the town community. One of the comments was there's 64 people that go to the senior center today. And in 3 years, that would be 192. I don't know how many children are in the Clyde F. Brown School. but they have a $50 million school for them to attend. It's time that the town looked at the seniors in this community and did something for them. I'm tired of asking all the time, what can we do? What programs can we do? What can we put into the building? We're in such limited space, and it would just be nice to see the town respect the seniors.
Yeah.
Just to add a little bit to that, I made an effort to go to the senior center, played cribbage once, did a little bit of knitting. It was nice. It was lovely. I'm not a senior, but I can see, and I've had some conversations with people, and there is a real need for space. There is not enough space. They can't. They're nearly maxed out on some of the events they currently do. So the space just is not adequate for some of the services and events they already provide. If they wanted to have some kind of a dinner, some kind of a holiday thing, they can't do that there. They have to find a completely other space. And knowing that they have those limitations, I'm going to venture to guess, means they do less of those things, because they know it just takes so much to try to accommodate it. So I have firsthand seen that I've never questioned that there's a need. There's certainly a need. And I definitely would like to see this go. I mean, this needs to go to the voters to decide. I'm personally not sure when we need to do that. I've heard the arguments both ways. So I think that's something that we don't have to decide tonight where it goes. We can think about this, and we can talk about it again on our August meeting.
My only concern with that is if we wait till the August meeting and we want November, we lose a month, and that's my concern. But if we want to wait till August and the Council on Aging gives us a definitive, they want to wait till May, again, they're the client. They're the ones that have to make the decision.
Madam Chair, thank you. Kathy McGinnis, 78 Island Road again. I went to the last very well put together presentation by the Permanent Building Committee, and a woman got up, and this relates to what Ellen is saying, Madam the Clerk. She said it was the first month that her oil bill was more than her mortgage. And I think that's what you're seeing right now, is that we're all for it, but where's the money from? And if someone could tell us, in the presentation, I think I understood that the operation of the building will be between $100,000 and $300,000. Through the chair, can you let us know where that funds are coming from, especially when I heard in at a public select board meeting last week or 2 weeks ago that there may be an operational override necessary?
Yeah.
That's my first.
I made the comment, I've never said that there's an operational override needed. I said if we want to continue to increase, not even consider, I said there's only two ways to increase costs: spend at a deficit or do an operational override.
Right.
And I said, I'm not endorsing, and I even clearly said, I am not endorsing an override. I'm saying you can't keep spending the way we're spending without an override. That's clearly different than saying we're going to have to do an override, all right? Because I don't want to do one either. But for this building, the plan that was put forward, because I attended 2 of the meetings and saw it, it was printed right in the brochure, $150,000 operating override and a $300,000 operating override. And that's the right way to approach it. I mean, we'd have to cut it from another department if we were to fund this at $150,000 or $300,000 more. So the right way, the appropriate way, the proper way is to do it through an operating override. That's different than endorsing it. That's stating the mechanism in which to do it. And that's, let's be clear, there was no talk of doing an operating override in the town, except for this when it's coupled with this. I said I would never support, even consider supporting a $21 million project without a $150,000 or $300,000 operating override on top of it, because you don't want to build it and then shutter it because you don't have janitor staff or anything else. You want to make sure it is staffed. So it
Good
does
point,
require
Mr.
that.
Chair. So I think it's very important that you're going to have an override to build the structure and an additional override to operate the structure.
Yeah. think those are the two
Okay,
points
so-
that need to be made, and that wasn't made in the presentation, yeah.
And I'm still concerned about the soil, insecticides, and PFAS at Cassidy's. I don't know if it was tested. I believe I asked at the time it wasn't. Will it be tested before, or if it's going to be $2-3 million, will it be another override for that, or will the cost be absorbed into what the override is?
I believe.
And let me add also that the pumping station that will be servicing this building will more than likely have to be reconstructed at a cost of $700,000 to $1 million. It's on Timberline now, and that will, it's...
Yeah, and I don't know about the soil studies. I wasn't at the site, and I don't think they're testing any soil for PFAS right now. But the soil studies for pesticides and other contaminants, I don't know that they've done any.
So
Yeah.
there would be 2 overrides. Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
Carol Goldstein, Clues Road. I just think that we haven't talked much about the community center part of this, and I don't think the town is aware of it. It was barely mentioned, I think, at the focus group. There were no examples. Would it be scouts? Would it be recreation department? All those people that could be using the building need to be in with the seniors in the promotions. So I don't know if that would be Chris Fogerty or schools or soccer team or whatever. Those people need to get involved.
I think it also comes down to, it's options, right? I mean, just like Ellen said, there's just so many options. You
Right.
could have a daycare in there, the scouts could use it, rec could use it. I mean, there's just, I think...
I grew up in Westboro, and there was a community center way back in the 50s. I had clarinet lessons there. I went to scouts there. We did Christmas carol things there. It was just used all the time, and it could be just a teacher and a student. It was, everybody used it. And I don't think we've gotten that concept yet.
Which kind of speaks to more work to be done, right?
Well, I'm not sure that the community part of it is that so much as the gym option.
Well, that's part of it.
That's what I thought.
I mean, you could have intramural basketball or...
Right. So, yeah, yes, there's a lot of work to be done.
So how does the senior center connect with the rest of the town?
Well, there have been meetings with all the different stakeholders. So the rec department has been in with Council on Aging, with the library. So there have been discussions because currently you look at what services the library offers versus what services rec offers and Council on Aging, and a lot of those kind of go together. So there have been discussions. Perhaps it just hasn't been packaged up and sold.
Right.
Yeah,
You know?
I think it needs to be promoted.
Well, there hasn't really been anything done so far on the programming piece of it, right? I mean, that's what...
They're never going to vote for it if they don't see
That's what-
something in it for them.
Yeah, true. True.
So at this point, what's your feeling? Do we want to talk about this again in August? And then decide where we're going to go with it? I mean, like Craig said, we will lose about a month of time. So if we do meet again in August and we talk about wanting it to be on the warrant for November town meeting, I mean, you lose a month.
I have to be honest with you. At this stage of the game, I do not think it's going to pass in November. I just don't. So losing a month, I don't think is going to make a difference.
Okay.
I'd rather see if the Council on Aging can support pushing it off and then we can make a concerted effort to get a good package and a good message out there. I do not believe it will pass in November, and I don't like the idea of having it fail and bringing it back. I don't like it.
So bearing that in mind, is the Council on Aging, do we think that the Council on Aging might meet and make a decision amongst themselves about whether they would like this pursued?
Hi, Bert Land, 60th Street, Council on Aging. We have a board meeting on August 11th.
Okay, yep.
As a board, we haven't officially discussed the idea of putting it off.
Okay.
I mean, some opinions have come from
Sure.
individuals today, but as a board, we haven't discussed that.
So
That
could
can
you?
certainly be done at our meeting on August 11th.
That would be perfect. So
And we
what
can
could
report
do-
back to, you know,
Yeah.
however that happened, yeah.
So what we'll do is we'll put this on our agenda for August 22nd, because
Yes.
that's our next meeting. If you guys could talk about that on the
We
11th
will.
and let us know, and then we'll make a decision from there.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. All right, so we are on to
So that's August 22nd, if anyone wants to return.
August 22nd, yes. Okay, so now we have the review and approval of the bond anticipation note.
Yes, Madam Chair. In your packet is information from the town treasurer for a general obligation bond anticipation note in the amount of $1,470,000. This is in connection with the land acquisition of the property at 377 Village Street, Clyde Brown School. This would be a one-year ban to expire on August 18th, 2023, with an interest, net interest cost and rate of 2.8165%, $41,287. And this evening,
We can hear you. Sorry.
What was the number, what were the dollars?
It was, the amount of the ban was $1,470,000. And the interest for the 1 year on the ban is $41,287. The treasurer is requesting that the board vote to approve the vote of the select board as written in the documents in your packet. And again, the town treasurer is asking the board to make a vote to adopt the vote prepared by bond counsel in connection with the sale and approval of the town's August bond anticipation notes. And there will be documents for the board to sign next week.
Okay. Any questions?
Yeah, what is this purchase for? What is this I'm looking at here?
This was for the
The Braun property.
Oh, this,
no, this is,
property and
no,
school.
this is the Clyde Brown School.
it's Clyde Brown School.
Yes.
Oh,
This is a
it says
ban.
both.
Yeah, what purpose for the Clyde Brown School, though? What are we?
The land purchase, land acquisition. Well,
Okay.
actually,
No, it's
no,
both of them.
I'm sorry, it's two purposes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, yes.
So
Two
land
purposes.
acquisition.
So it's a
for-
combination of the Braun and,
Yeah, I thought
the
it was
Braun
the
is
Braun.
1 million.
Yes,
And the
okay.
Clyde Brown is 470,000.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay, thank you. Thank you. That makes sense. I kept seeing the Clyde Brown, and trying to think how this related to the school in some way.
It's all written in
Yes.
one line.
The 470
Yes.
I got, and the million I got.
I was reading it and missed the semicolon.
I was thinking Braun for a million, but
Yes.
then I also missed the semicolon and saw Clyde Brown. And I'm trying
So
to
these-
Google
These
377 Village
these
Street.
two purchases are together on the one ban.
Okay.
Okay.
And it makes sense financially for the town to combine them.
Any
So-
questions?
And I'm sorry, one last
okay.
question.
Go ahead.
The period on this is
It's 1 year.
1 year, and then we're going to bond it over on a permanent bond?
That is the plan.
Okay. And this is voted, and it's not any increase to taxes, this is using normal?
No, this was
is
already
normal
approved.
part of the budget revenue?
Yes. Already
Okay.
anticipated.
And if you're so inclined, there's a suggestion.
Don't point at me, I am not the clerk, and it clearly says here at the bottom, clerk of the select board.
Oh, it does? Okay.
Yeah.
I think we can just say
So
as written.
the
Yeah.
motion is to adopt the vote prepared by bond counsel in
You're trying to
connection
get
with the
to page,
sale and
Where's
approval
79.
of the town's August bond anticipation notes.
Bottom
It's the bottom of
79.
page 1, the memo from the town
Page 79 is the
treasurer.
report.
Why is he saying 79?
It's okay. So we'll go with the, we'll go with the motion that Mike just said. So moved.
Okay. Second.
All right. It's been moved and seconded to adopt the bond with the
Anticipation
sale
note,
and approval of the town's August bond anticipation notes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes
Thank you.
unanimously. Okay.
Gotta get better glasses.
Okay, next, discuss extending the sewer moratorium. So we had some brief discussions, but we haven't had a working meeting, which I still want to have. We had some discussions. I have been working on combining the policy document I had with some information that Craig brought. And there's actually another document I have in my mail that I want to kind of massage in there. So we still need time to get the policy in place, discuss, and we'll get, this will be on our goals, but discuss the potential for that 3-person appointed commission. So we have things that we need to put in place, and we don't have enough time before this moratorium ends. This ends at the end of July. So I was thinking of extending it at minimum 2 months, maybe 3.
I was thinking 4, but we're about in the same ballpark.
4,
I was
I
saying-
can go with 4.
I was going to, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I want to ask it to Mr. McKay. Has it had an impact on anybody? Has this sewer moratorium had an impact? Have we denied anybody anything?
Well, they might not have come to us
Because they know it?
there's a moratorium.
Wouldn't they come beating down the door?
So we've had licensed people that can actually come to tie in. We've had, I'd say, since the moratorium went in place, to maybe 100, but they have the right to tie in.
Those
So
people
we've
who paid a
approved.
betterment?
So it's not a
They pay
moratorium
betterments
on
and
them.
They're not a
Right,
moratorium on
yeah.
them. The only development that has moved forward is the 40B down on Main Street.
And they were
close to
already
the-
approved.
And they were already approved.
Correct.
So we have not had any new developers come to Millis and say, hey,
What's up?
what's up? No.
May I ask a silly question? If I own a home and I'm on sewer, and I decide to put an addition on, and I'm adding 2 bedrooms, am I allowed to do that with a sewer moratorium?
Yes,
I am.
yes, because there's no...
There's no additional hookup.
Yeah,
There's
right.
no
already
additional
have the
It
connection.
connection.
doesn't matter that the per bedroom,
Right,
you
no,
don't know. Okay. Just curious, somebody asking that.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we extend the sewer moratorium till 11/1/2022, or until such time as we have a final plan in place.
Second.
And so what was the date?
I stole your thunder.
She was ready.
It's been moved and seconded to extend the sewer moratorium to November 1st, 2022. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously.
Can I just get a question from town council, if you, the town administrator? There was, the town council had said that if people paid for the betterment, then you can't take it away from them.
Right.
And I'm wondering what town council said when, like, the people on Orchard Street that did not pay into it,
Yeah,
but
we
were
can
given
take
a
that.
right.
Yes, I believe there are mechanisms where that can be
Believe,
taken away.
did you? okay.
No, that was my understanding from
Yeah.
speaking with him, that there are things that the town can do to remove that access.
Okay.
And
that's what we're working with for that
It's only the
policy.
people that have paid a betterment
Right.
that they're really, they own it. You can't remove it.
How do you know if you got one?
If you paid a betterment?
Yeah, like,
You
did.
know it.
You're on Clues Road.
It could have been like 25 years ago. I don't
Right.
know.
You can ask the tax office,
No,
right?
if you're on Clues Road, because my in-laws live there, you paid a betterment. It went down Clues Road 15, 20 years ago. Yeah, maybe that range.
I think you can ask the tax
Just happen to
office.
know.
I think you can ask the tax office. I think they have that record.
They would have that record.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so the
Okay.
next item we have is to
to
discuss
know
the
that
select board goals.
Last 32 years.
All right, so we had a working group meeting to talk about goals, and those were combined into a main document that has some broader sections with some bullet points. So I was able to take a look at this, and
Page 86.
You're killing me.
I just lost my page too. I'm on my way there. Okay, here I am. So our town administrator put together all of the stuff we brought because all three of us brought some ideas for goals. Some of ours overlapped, so it made sense to bring it together.
I will, Madam Chair, I
Yes.
will give Selectman Schultz a lot of credit towards this. He did provide a template. I did
Nice.
tweak it slightly,
So I
but
take my notes.
He was very thorough in his review, and I reviewed it, and I was in concurrence
Nice.
with his review.
Well, thank you, Mr. Schultz.
I tried to drop it to just 4 goals, make them big.
It's good.
So here's the question I have for you guys, is looking at this document, it would make sense to try to prioritize things, right? Because there's a lot in here. And we also, having a lot of goals is fine, but we need to prioritize in terms of what's important and urgent and what is attainable. So, I mean, there's kind of 2 things to consider here. So when I'm looking at this document, there might be some sub-items that are super attainable. We could do them, we could knock those out, no problem. Whether or not they're the highest priority is kind of another thing. So I think my question is, can we somehow prioritize this document as it exists, or do we need to, in some fashion, tweak it so that we can actually separate out priorities? Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Doesn't the attainability make it is this a stupid question? Doesn't the super attainable make it the highest priority?
That's
No.
It can, if that's the board's priority.
Right?
It can.
I would like to see some wins, right?
Yeah.
So we knock
Yes.
out some of the
Right.
attainable ones.
Well,
I think if we were to set that as the priority list, that would basically give me some of the direction, even though these are the board's goals, which do oftentimes translate into my goals, which we haven't codified yet for the next year, but it's usually based off of these goals. It's really just to, if there's time issues, and really sometimes you need to decide which one you're going to spend the time on more than the other one in the short term or long term. That's really what I'm looking for a little guidance. But if the guidance is knock off the easiest ones first, or the ones that the least time, and then go after the other ones when you can as the year goes on, that is guidance. So I'm certainly open to however you want to look at that.
Yeah, and having, this looks very familiar, but having looked at this, and when I was thinking about it, some of this is more marching order kind of stuff, like the 4% budget growth, resolve the stormwater enterprise funding issue, not stormwater, but enterprise funding, and others. So like really A, B, C, and D of item 1 are all part of the normal budget process. It's just a philosophy around it.
It's a guideline
Yeah.
for the
Right.
process,
I
which
get that.
that's easy enough.
Item E is a town meeting vote, which is,
Right.
do we decide we want to pursue that or not?
That would be amazing.
And then we also learned, that'd be in the what?
That would be amazing.
And then we just learned that changing the stormwater billing is
Yeah.
also,
Well,
And then enterprise
A warrant,
funds,
right?
number 2, we're going to knock a bunch of those things off by
Right.
just finishing.
number
off.
2 is going to be done
Right.
in
yes.
a minute.
Well, yes, it's the sewer would be the sewer bylaw provisions, all that would be a very high priority item,
Yes.
item A.
Yes.
Item B is, just part of normal marching orders again. We're trying to, for PFAS grants as much as we can.
Yes.
Stormwater's town meeting, so that, we'll get information on that, but that might be quick. And then the board is a major discussion point and a decision that we have to make.
Which
But
one
that
is?
ties into the policy.
2D, right, so that can go with the above.
So that
yeah.
would be,
Yeah.
yeah.
Infrastructure,
That's just ongoing. I
yeah,
mean,
that's,
right?
And again, some of these are really purely your goals that the
Yeah.
administration can provide some assistance to you,
Yeah.
but really, you're doing some of the heavy lifting on that, like the one you just talked about with the senior center and
Yeah.
where that's going to go. We provide information as you need it, but that's really, you're doing the lifting on that to make those decisions. Really, from my perspective, is if there are items that rise well above the other ones, I would ask for that guidance. If you're comfortable saying, just move ahead with these over the year and the way you best feel able to push these as far as possible?
Well,
Leave it at that?
you're working on 4E as we speak, right? The improving communication.
You're working on a lot of these issues.
Yeah.
No, I know, but
We're working on
Your
most
work,
of
I don't
these.
see,
So I guess I would personally
I've never had a
prefer to
problem
not
with goals.
prioritize, because I think
Okay.
working as a team,
Yeah.
I really think we're going to be able to knock a lot of these out.
Okay.
And I think things happen, right? So we'll start working on something and then it will end up.
Sometimes you have to pivot.
Right,
But,
right.
that's part of the
We'll
process.
reprioritize
Yes.
as we go if,
Opportunities come up or problems come up that
Right.
you have to change direction.
Right.
Right, and none of these are those, a whole, earth-shaking shift in the direction of the town. I mean,
Right.
these aren't your big, huge, massive goals and ambitious goals. This is how to run a town effectively. It's,
right.
yeah, which I think is what we need for a bit.
So I
You know?
think if we're all happy
So do
with
I.
this, I think we need a motion to accept these as our select board goals for fiscal year '23.
Okay, come on, motion man.
I'll make a motion to accept these as our select board goals for FY '23.
I second.
Okay, it's been moved
Beautifully
and
done.
seconded to accept our select board goals for fiscal year '23. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes
I
unanimously.
love these goals.
So I will
Fantastic.
post them on the
Goals,
select
I
board
think
webpage.
Yeah.
And we have the ones
Oh,
from
did you
last
just
year
get
as
rid of
well,
the goals
so
you can't
if
hear?
want to see them, you can see them.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Clean
well, it
audit.
depends on what you're looking for.
That is a goal. We don't have a clean audit fires. That's all about that.
Okay,
It's like me.
we'll talk to you.
After I've done everything I need to do, I make the list and I check them all off.
So the next thing we have is approval of a scrap metal drive. So Paul Sims has done scrap metal drives before to benefit, I believe before it was like the Cub Scouts. This time, they're looking to do a scrap metal drive to benefit the Charles River Corral.
Excellent.
And they'd like to use the Lansing Millis train station parking lot for the scrap metal drive, which is better than using town hall since it's kind of more out of the
Yeah.
way for that purpose. A little bit about it, the corral started in 1985 and it has members from surrounding towns and cities. In the past couple of years, they've had to switch to virtual rehearsals and concerts. And smaller group, less money from concerts, thus. And they currently don't have any money to fund their next season. So they're looking to do some fundraisers so they can pay for directors, rehearsal space, music, and so forth. So they're working with Paul, who's successfully organized these in the past, and they're just looking for approval to use that space.
Are they dropping a container? What are they dropping?
They have had a big
Typically, it's
dumpster.
a very big dumpster
Yeah.
container.
I
that
had a
people
truck one year
use.
that he drove around and picked up, because I remember getting
And
rid of
then,
a bunch of stuff.
Right, and then Paul actually went around to people who couldn't lift whatever it is they
And-
had to bring it for them.
And it's just, is it going to be enclosed, I hope? Because somebody's just going to come and steal everything right out of it.
I don't think it's going to be there very long
Oh, just
at
a
all.
day?
Yeah, it's just a
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically,
Oh.
you have a day
Yeah.
to drop everything off.
It's there one day and
August
then they
7th.
take it away.
Oh,
But again, I don't know, I haven't spoken to Paul, but typically, if someone reached out and said, I have this thing I want to drop, but I just don't have a way to get in there, they would find a way to help them get it there,
Okay.
which is nice.
And they're looking to do this on Sunday, August 7th, from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m.
I'll make a motion to authorize the use of the old train station, Lansing Millis Building parking lot on Sunday, August 7th, from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. for scrap metal drive for the Charles River Corral.
second.
Okay,
Excellent.
it's been moved and seconded to approve the scrap metal drive at the train station parking lot. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, so next we have any board and committee liaison updates. Have either of you gone to any meetings recently to report back on?
I have.
You have?
I have.
Where have
Permanent
you
Building Committee. Remember, you were on
Yes,
vacation.
I wasn't here, yes.
You were on the Cape, I was in a room.
Toiling away.
Yeah, you saw the meeting that we discussed that presentation.
All
So
right,
there's nothing
then.
to hear there.
Okay.
And I also went to the Capital Planning Committee meeting, and that
Okay.
one was a little more interesting. Well, it was more interesting. This is a surprise. This is anticipation. You haven't heard it yet. They're discussing the procedures for this year and whether things like the Council on Aging building should be part of our normal their normal evaluative process, because they rank things on a highest to lowest priority, and the discussion revolved around several people thinking, does a major voter-determined capital project fall into the purview of what this committee should be doing? We think it makes perfect sense for laying out roofing, boilers, HVAC systems, all of those ongoing maintenance that have to happen, but does something like a new school or a new senior center, does that fall into their purview? Because it's really outside of the typical capital scope.
No, but once it exists.
Once it exists, the maintenance of
Right.
it falls absolutely into theirs.
Yeah, I see
But
that.
if something is going to be determined by the voters and not be a use of normal funds that we have, like
Yeah.
HVAC repairs, roof repairs, all that's typical funds. How do you allocate your free cash? How do you allocate your new growth? That's right, absolutely in their wheelhouse. But something that's a $15 million building that requires taxpayer vote, do they take or not take a position on it? Or do they note it off to the side that these are the items that are coming down the pike and we have to decide, and you as a voter have to have
That's
knowledge of these, but we're not going to take a position on these.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, so no decision was reached, but that was the discussion that was had
Okay.
for an hour and 20 minutes.
Ellen, have you had anything?
I did.
You did what you
Oh,
have.
my God, I don't know if it was quite as exciting as yours. Energy.
Energy.
Yes.
How'd it go?
It was good.
How many hours was it?
Oh, my God, too many hours. No, fabulous. No, it was good, it was good, it was good. So they're talking about, well, first of all, they got this letter from somebody, they don't even know who they got a letter from. Do you know anything about it, Mike, about not having the proper fencing at the solar farm somewhere?
I don't have the details on that.
Have you heard of it?
I feel like I saw something.
Yeah, everybody feels like they saw something. There's a letter out there from a concerned neighbor that the fencing is not compliant. I said, can I see the letter? Well, we haven't quite seen the letter. Supposedly,
It went to the building commissioner, I believe.
okay, somebody should look into that.
Ellen, let me look at that tonight.
They say it's a chain link one and not even completely surrounding it, and it's supposed to be stockade. That's all I know.
Well, that must have been a zoning issue
I
or
don't know.
something, because there's no state law that requires that, but there may have been
A
a
local-
local approval
yeah.
I thought there
that
was-
was contingent upon that for the neighbors, for the viewing and so
Something.
forth.
I
Yeah.
thought there was something in the article that passed at town meeting that addressed screening, but I can't recall the details
Yes, and
of
then,
it.
and building commissioner would be responsible for
Karen, if you
enforcing
could
that.
follow up
I
on
will
that,
look,
that would
because
be
you're saying
awesome.
that, and I want to say
I saw it too.
CC'd and it went to the building commissioner, so somewhere it's out there. So
Okay.
I'll find it. You don't know the neighbors?
Nope.
We'll track it down.
No,
If the neighbors want
hopefully
it,
there's
feel
only
free to
one.
Email me tomorrow.
While we're on the discussion of energy, Scott Fusey, 411 Union, the old landfill, has anyone ever looked at putting a solar farm up there? I know some communities have done that with their old landfills, because you really can't do anything with them as far as using that property for a solar farm.
I'd be surprised
Thank you.
if someone hasn't looked at it in the past, but I will speak with our energy manager and see if we have looked at that. It's
a great idea.
It's the first
And I'm
time
sorry,
someone's
it's
mentioned it.
Sorry, yes, and it's Acorn Street was the.
I have no idea. How many solar farms do we have in this town?
There's one on Acorn.
Is that the only one in the town?
That's the major one, I think, is the Acorn one.
Probably.
I'll look into it.
And then the only other thing they kept talking, well, we're trying to get to net zero, right? Apparently, isn't the whole world supposed to be net zero by 2050? You'll let me know how that works out, Craig.
I'm doing the math now.
Are you doing the math now? I
Yeah.
see you taking your shoes off.
Yeah.
So,
Whether it's a concern for me or not.
so I have an energy guy because I happen to be net zero, my grow facility. I know, it's something.
Yeah.
It's a whole thing. I mean, it's a whole thing. Anywho, apparently the town's buildings are at like 18 or 22%. They don't even quite know. But the whole town is supposed to be net zero. That's like a real thing, right?
It is.
By 2050.
Yes.
So that's what they're they're trying to get on. But in the meantime, I'm trying to set up a meeting with my energy guy and Bob to explain some things on how to do it.
Excellent.
Great. Okay. And I haven't been to anything. And now I feel like that's probably
A
wrong,
slug.
so I have to go back out through my list and be like, what
You
have
know
I
they're
missed?
having- It's summer, there aren't,
Yeah.
there aren't as
Thank you for
nearly
making me
as
feel
many
better.
as- yeah,
They don't really pick up again until September.
All right, then. So the last thing on our regular agenda is approval of minutes from our meeting on the 11th, which was very brief.
I'll make a motion, we approve the minutes from the meeting on the 11th, which was very brief.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes from the 11th. All those in favor?
Aye. Mr. Duffy, where would we be if we didn't
I don't know.
ask
I know where I would
a
be.
question?
All right, Jim Duffy, Exchange Street. So, if I go to the Millis public website, and I click on the nice button that says Minutes, and I say Select Board, I get February's minutes.
That is true. That is true. We are working
Okay.
on that. We are working on that.
So it's hard to keep tabs on what's going on
get it.
across the
I will-
board.
I will say that we are posting it if there's a specific meeting that you're looking for right now, because that's our goal right now, is to get caught up on the minutes, honestly. Working on that. It was bandwidth. We finally have someone now that we're going to be looking to hire for 18 hours to help us out with that. If it's a very specific meeting, you can let
Well, I
me
don't know, because
I hear
all of
you.
a sudden I want to zoom in and say, what's been going on, and I got no ability to do that.
Right.
I will say the agendas with the packets are typically posted.
Yes,
But there's no
the
minutes.
packets are always posted.
Understood,
discussion.
right? And really, the minutes should be part of that, even though they aren't approved,
Yeah.
right? They
That's
could say,
Right.
Yeah, draft.
Which, like I
Whatever
said,
it is,
probably
draft,
short-staffing,
right?
so-
Yeah, they
So they could be
certainly
there.
will be. And if there's a specific meeting, most of the board's meetings over the past 2 years are on Zoom, which
I appreciate that.
He just wants summary,
But-
people.
but-
Just
I don't-
summary.
But there will
Mr. Duffy.
be the
I
minutes.
watch little TV as possible, and, you know,
It is one of our goals.
if it's a
Yeah.
podcast, I
Right,
might
Chair?
listen to it, but.
Right, Madam Chair?
Yes.
It is.
Yeah.
And the other
Our
just
goal
quick
is
comment
for
is the
sure.
document regarding the enterprise funds does not match the paper that he handed me.
Oh,
Well, we could certainly get you a copy of the 3-page document we have
the
here.
3-page
I
document.
got it, but that's my point.
His
Doesn't
point-
match what's online, he's
I
saying.
understand completely.
Oh, it
That
should.
was like, that's
Right.
where where's the $115 capital? Well, these numbers are radically different.
I understand.
What was
All right.
online, so-
We'll double check that.
We'll look into it.
Okay, sorry.
It's okay. All right, so at this point, we are going to need to adjourn to go into executive session for the purpose of conducting strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with union and non-union personnel, SEIU and AFSCME, and the town administrator, and to discuss strategy with respect to litigation for site investigation. Once we emerge from executive session, we will emerge just for the purpose of adjourning. So I need a motion to go into executive session.
I'll make a motion to go into executive session for the purposes described.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to go into executive session. I'll poll the board. Ms. Rosenfeld?
Yes.
Mr. Schultz?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So we are now adjourned to executive session. Thank you very much, everybody.